Hi, I'm Kate Stour from the Minnesota Historical Society, and I'm here to share with you a handful of powerful resources for teaching elementary history. The first site we're going to start with is the Minnesota Center for Social Studies Education, mncsse.org. I want to show you the curriculum guides. We have a series of curriculum guides that were designed by a team of Minnesota teachers at each of the grade levels in elementary school. We have a curriculum guide that takes you through benchmark by benchmark, all of the social studies benchmarks. It outlines the concepts, the skills, the essential questions, and the learning targets that you could use for each of those benchmarks. And then you'll see right next to the guides we have a series of resource lists, and the resource lists include not only some general resources for teaching social studies, but also some children's books, lesson plans, and other resources that you can use for each of those benchmarks in the elementary grades. Next, I want to show you the Doing Social Studies video series. This is a series of videos that were created to give you a brief snapshot of what the social studies benchmarks look like at each of the grades in elementary school. So if you teach kindergarten, you can click into that kindergarten video, and in just a brief 3 to 5 minute video, it will walk you through all of the benchmarks at that grade level and give you a few ideas of how you might meet those benchmarks with your kindergarten students. Next, let's look at some inquiry-related resources. So we have several resources related to doing inquiry with your students, and you'll see the series of infographics on the left-hand side there. So we have not only a K2 infographic, but we also have one for grades 3 through 6 history, and you can print that in color or black and white. And here you can see it walks your students through the historical inquiry process, starting with asking questions, thinking critically, drawing conclusions, and finally communicating findings. So this is a great infographic to walk you through the whole process. And if you saw on the website, right next to the infographics, we have a series of let's see, if we scroll down to the bottom there, we've got a series of videos. So these Powtoons are cute little cartoon videos that walk you through historical inquiry for your students, and it's a great companion to those infographics. The next website that I want to take you to is the Minnesota Historical Society. So it's mnhs.org, and there's a couple of my favorite resources for elementary teachers. The first is called the Minnesota Book of Days. So if we go to schools and go specifically to the page for educators, there's this list of online resources. And if you scroll down, you'll find the Minnesota Book of Days. Now, this is an almanac of Minnesota history. And so you'll see on this day in Minnesota history, in 1855, Minnesota's Republicans held their first formal meeting. So this was the beginning of the Republican Party in Minnesota on this day in history. So this is just a fun way to bring in some Minnesota trivia. I know my son's first grade teacher did this every single day as part of Circle Time. Now the second thing I want to show you is this Collections Online. This is a collection of over 200,000 digitized images from our collection. And so let's say you teach in Zumbrota. You want to type in Zumbrota and see what comes up. And lo and behold, there's all these great historic images of the community of Zumbrota. And so there's even the school in 1940. So you can show your students, this is what our school used to look like. How does that compare to our school today? So really fun to be able to bring in some primary sources and also some local connections to your community. The next one I want to show you is National Archives. So if you go to archives.gov, they have a great tool that was just launched. So if you go to Educator Resources and scroll down to Special Topics and Tools, and then way down at the bottom, they have this great new tool. It's the Document Analysis Worksheet. And so let's say you want to have your students analyze that picture of Zumbrota School that we just looked at. Or maybe you have some objects in your class, like you're teaching a unit on the fur trade and you want your students to analyze an artifact like this. So these document analysis worksheets walk your students through that whole analysis process, starting with what is this made of? Because you know, students, if you can, students just love to get their hands on things. And so it's great to be able to use objects whenever we can. So that's just a few resources for your elementary classroom. Hopefully you found something that you can use. Thanks so much.